Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Barnes and Noble Midday Mystery. My name is John Mars, and I'm the author of best-selling novels like The One, You Killed Me First, and Next Year's Dead in the Water. But I'm not here to talk about myself, although that is my favourite subject. But I'm here to chat with the rather brilliant Daniel G. Miller, author of The Chilling, The Orphanage by the Lake, and more recently, The Red Letter. Daniel is a USA Today best-selling thriller and adventure novelist. And he must be pretty damn good if James Patterson calls Orphanage by the Lake series irresistible. When he's not writing, Daniel enjoys contemplating the what-ifs of the world, travelling with his wife, and sitting on the couch like an ogre watching NBA basketball. So welcome, Daniel.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. How about that
How are you
intro
today?
video? That was great.
It's great, isn't it? I'd love
Yeah,
one of those every time I walked in the door.
exactly. That's what we need.
So whereabouts are you right now?
I'm actually in Minneapolis right now, which is where I grew up, putting the finishing touches on a little book research.
Okay. I might
Yeah,
ask you a bit more about that later. So,
absolutely.
so for the viewers, if you want to ask any questions, then please leave your questions on here, and we'll get through as much as we can. So, congratulations on the publication of the Red Letter. I read it over 2 days while on holiday and was pretty addicted. In fact, my family barely saw me, so they're probably thanking you for this. It's the second book in the series, so without any spoilers, can you tell us a little bit about its predecessor, The Orphanage by the Lake, first?
Yes. So, well, first of all, thanks for reading, and sorry to spoil a family vacation, or maybe make it more enjoyable. I'm not sure which. But The Orphanage by the Lake is about a private investigator named Hazel Cho, and she's sort of down on her luck. Her private investigation business is essentially weeks from going under. And she gets a visit from a mysterious, wealthy woman who wants her to help find her goddaughter who has gone missing from a children's home. And Hazel's pretty reluctant to take the case because she thinks it's probably just a standard runaway and a waste of her time. Not sure she'll actually get paid. Uh, but desperate times for all call for desperate measures. So she takes the case and goes out to the children's home and finds that this is not the first girl that's gone missing from this children's home, and that there is something much deeper and darker beneath the surface.
It's pretty fair to say that it was a phenomenal success.
It was a little bit to my surprise, to be honest. I was actually very excited to get in this uh, discussion with you because my previous series, I wrote sort of a speculative fiction
Okay.
trilogy,
Yeah.
and I know you had done the same thing, and had sort of bounced back and forth
Yeah.
between speculative fiction and more mystery thrillers. And you actually gave me the guts to try it because it's quite a change, right? Going from
Yeah, it is.
speculative
Absolutely.
fiction
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
that's good to know.
but I love the genre, and love the idea of this character and sort of turning the traditional private investigator novel on its
Yeah.
head a little bit, instead of having the kind of crusty old Irish alcoholic,
Uh,
detective who's seen everything, having
yeah.
a different take.
That's what I really enjoyed about Letter. I found her a fantastic, fascinating character who did not
Thank you.
feel cliched, and that's what I really enjoyed about it. But just going back to the first one, when you started getting so much positive feedback from it, what kind of things go through your head?
Um, well, first thing is, a big sigh of relief because, obviously you're venturing out into unknown territory in the mystery thriller genre. And then also, I mean, having concerns about just a brand new character, a 30-year-old Korean American woman who obviously, as an older white male, you want to make sure you get that right. And fortunately, I was lucky enough that two of my best friends growing up were Korean American, and so I really got to build on that foundation of our friendship together to create Hazel Cho.
Wow. So did you run ideas past them,
Oh,
mannerisms, family details, that kind of thing?
absolutely, absolutely. Because that was one of the things that struck me about growing up with them was how they essentially inhabited two different worlds, right? They had their home life where they were living with first generation immigrants to America, and then they had their sort of school life that was, just pure America, right?
Yeah.
Without any of that history. And so um, it was just something that they had to straddle those two worlds, and I thought was very interesting for Hazel to straddle.
Did you have the idea for the red letter while you were writing Orphanage?
Um, no, I did not actually.
Okay. Where did that
I
come from?
didn't. I Well, what I knew is when I wrote Orphanage, I kind of fell in love with the character of Hazel and always wanted her to have more cases. So that was always sort of in my mind. But then the idea from the red letter really came from what I see as sort of a core piece of Hazel herself, which is that to me, what defines her is she's sort of the every person fighting against powerful forces, right?
Mm,
And so in the orphanage by the lake, you have obviously without going into the details of the story, you have the powerful forces are really the wealthy and the police, and so and that I think makes her captivating, right? Is because she's willing to fight that fight. And so really in thinking about the next novel, what jumped out to me is okay, what are other powerful institutions that
mm.
sometimes do escape accountability, right?
Yeah.
And the Catholic Church struck me as one of those, and the red letters fell from that.
Was it always a plan to write a series, or was it after the success of the first that you decided you had the confidence to build on that?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to write a series. I wasn't sure whether how well, the first one would be received,
Yeah.
but once that took off, I thought, okay, there's a demand for this, and definitely wanted to make sure that Hazel had more stories, and I plan on doing more in the future as well.
Because I've never written a sequel yet. I've written books with characters that have appeared in other books and they just make little guest appearances here or there. But I always really admire people who can write, who can use the same character. And also, I end up killing off most of my characters. So unless they're
You don't
prequels,
have a choice.
voices from beyond the grave, it just ain't gonna work for me.
Well, that's interesting. So why is that? Has it been a conscious choice of I don't want to have a recurring character, or just it happened that
Yeah.
way?
I think it's because for me, I don't have the patience to sit down and write a 100,000 word book and then think, right, I'm going to have to use these same characters for another 100,000 word book. I kind of
Yeah.
it's like ending a relationship for me. That's it. You're gone. You're out the door. Move on. I don't want to go back.
Yeah, no, I think that I think is actually one of the challenges, right, of writing a series is you're essentially writing on two paths, right? You've got
Yeah.
the plot line itself, and then you've got the character development, or your character's gonna get stale.
Yeah. What I found really interesting and very clever was that you kind of drip thread in the red letter bits of what happened in its predecessor, but without giving everything away. You've frozen on my screen. Are you still there? Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I'm losing you a little bit here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are you back?
I can hear you now. Yep, sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep,
So
I'm back.
I don't know whether you heard the question. I was saying what I found very clever was how you drip fed pieces of book one into book two, but without giving everything from book one away. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, that I'm glad you asked that one. That's a tricky one because obviously you want to build on the edifice of book one, but you don't want to kill book one entirely for people who come in later.
Yeah.
For me, what mattered to me was in book two, the way I see it is Hazel is, and I hope this comes through even though you haven't read book one. Hazel's dealing with trauma,
Hmm.
right? She's had
Absolutely.
trauma, and that trauma informs how she is dealing with this case in book two. And so that was the most important thing to me was feeding enough of book one in that you understood, even if you hadn't read book one, that this is a person who's dealing with trauma, and that trauma is sort of luggage on her back as
Yeah.
she tries to tackle this case. But at the same time, making it vague enough that you can go back to Orphanage by the Lake and get a fresh look at what actually happened to her.
Again, without spoilers, could you tell us about the red letter?
Yep. So the red letter is again the second in the series, and a neighborhood priest that Hazel knows is found dead in a church, murdered by a mysterious poison. And there is a red letter found at the scene of the crime with sort of a mysterious message that may or may not mean anything. And her good friend from law school asks Hazel if she can help uh, work on the case, the defense for a boy who has been arrested for the murder, but she's a defense attorney. She obviously doesn't think he did it and thinks Hazel may uh, be able to find something that clears him.
Yeah.
And as she digs into the case, she finds that this is not the only victim who has received a red letter, and that there may be more coming down the pike.
So can you tell us about how Hazel chose to be a private investigator? How did she end up going in that direction?
Yeah. So again, I one of the things I do, actually, I'm curious kind of how you attack this, particularly with the fact that you're doing new characters in each book. But one of the things I do is I actually write the characters first
Okay.
before the plot, because I feel like if you get deep enough on the characters, then and you just get the plot rolling, then the plot just becomes the characters reacting in the way you would expect them to react.
Okay.
And so for Hazel, she was a lawyer or studying to be a lawyer. Her sister was studying to be a doctor. So it was, sorry, there's a alert here. And so she had a traumatic incident happen to her, and she found that the police and uh, legal system weren't helping her. And but a private detective did help her, and she, in that moment, realized, if I'm a cog in the legal system as a lawyer, I may not be able to actually do that much. But as a private detective, I sort of run my own show, and I can
Yeah.
stick up for people who don't have anybody else to stick up for them. And so that's why she became a private investigator. It's sort of the license to be a vigilante in some ways, right?
So how does that play with her family? What do they think of her switch from lawyer to private investigator?
Yeah, so that's the big problem, and that's the big strain with her family is her, especially with her sister. So her sister is a doctor, very successful, and is married, and is sort of the apple of her mother's eye,
Yeah.
whereas she is essentially the black sheep and a little bit of a disappointment, right? Because she was going to be an attorney, she was going to hopefully get married, and she's single and a private investigator and down on her luck and a little bit of a mess. She drinks sugar-free Red Bull for
Uh-huh.
breakfast,
Who
and
doesn't?
that causes strain. So
Uh-huh. Is she based on anybody that you know in real life or any of her character traits? I mean, you mentioned the friends that you've spoken to get her background, but what about her
yeah,
actual personality?
yeah, absolutely. So she's sort of a hybrid of two of my best friends,
Okay.
and who I love dearly, and particularly love for the fact that uh, they're willing to pursue their own thing, right? They don't purely just follow the mold. They pursue what they think is right, sometimes to their own detriment. But that, I think, is one of the hardest things to do in the world, right? Is to go outside the system, right?
Yeah.
It's much easier to stay inside the system, and so
Yeah.
everything Hazel does is not particularly glamorous, but she does it because she thinks it's the right thing to do.
Have these friends read the book?
Yes, yes.
Did they
And
recommend
they
it
liked
themselves?
it. So that's the good part. I didn't offend them. That's the key.
Yeah. They're still talking to you. That's
They're
always
still talking to me. Exactly.
yeah. So I'm assuming that there's going to be more in store for Hazel in the future.
Yep. Yep. So I'm actually right now. You were asking, why I'm in Minnesota. So right now I'm actually writing a standalone psychological thriller
Oh,
that will not feature Hazel, but
okay.
I'm finishing that up in the next month, and then I'll be back to book three of Hazel, and I've got some ideas of where she's gonna go, but haven't fully fleshed it out yet.
Can you tell us anything about the standalone?
Yeah, so the standalone is main character's name is Charlotte Hoffman, and she's a management consultant, and she gets suspended from her job for an incident at work that we don't know exactly what it is. And She lives in Chicago, and her mom, but she grew up in Minnesota. And her mom says, "You know what? We've got family friends who've got a lake house on an island. It's a real island in Minnesota called Big Island, and they're looking for an extra body to help with their twin kids and babysit and hang around. Why don't you go out there for a month and just sort of recharge while your company's figuring out your suspension?" And she's hesitant to do that because when the last time she was in Minnesota and saw this family, the Parkers, her friend Olivia fell off a Ferris wheel at the state fair and was in a coma.
Okay.
And her family moved shortly after. And so she's sort of like, I'm going to go back to this. I don't know if they're going to even want to see me. And I haven't spoken to Olivia. I don't know what she's going to be like. But she does it anyway. And upon getting there, she very quickly realizes she's made a big mistake. I won't go into too much more detail, but the island holds secrets that she doesn't necessarily want revealed.
That's whetting my appetite. So, that book, the first two, I know it's a standalone, then the most recent two, mainly it's like female protagonists. I know you have male protagonists in there as well, but mainly female as lead characters. Why is that?
That's a really good question. I think honestly, it was just for a change of pace. So before I got into mystery thrillers, I wrote a trilogy called The Tree of Knowledge, which I'm actually reworking as well, and that has a male lead. And while that was a great experience writing that, in some ways, I felt like I was a worse writer because I was writing too much from the assumptions of my own experience, if that
Okay.
makes any sense.
Yeah.
Right? I think there's something about being able to jump into somebody who's different than you, then that allows you to, in some ways, be a better writer because you're coming at it from a fresh perspective versus your own perspective.
Yeah.
It's the classic case of, I don't think my own stories are interesting. I think your stories are interesting because I haven't heard them before,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so when I was writing from, in my first book, a person who was very similar to my background, it felt like not as interesting because I'm writing my story versus someone else's story.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. Most of my main characters are female, and I find it easier to write from a female perspective than I do from a male perspective, and I haven't quite managed to work out why yet.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I wonder if it's the same. It'd be interesting to ask a female author if it's easier writing from a male perspective.
Hmm. Do you ask female friends? Do you ask your wife for opinions on anything particularly you're writing, like when you write from a female perspective?
Absolutely. I'm I'm really a big believer in representation in writing,
Yeah.
and but I'm also totally aware that I have blinders on, and
Uh,
so whenever I write something, other than what I know particularly well, I always ask, like I ask my Korean American friends, please read this, please tell me if there's things here that are stereotypical or inappropriate or
yeah.
just inaccurate. And
Yeah.
same thing, always talking with my wife about, female perspectives. But one of the things that's interesting, I think, is as we all know, is every individual is different, right? And
Yeah.
um, and so you'll have readers who think your character was perfectly realistic, and others who thinks they aren't, right? And so
Yeah.
you'll never get it perfectly right.
No. You can, yeah, when it comes to the accuracy side of things, if you make the simple mistake, then people will pick up on it and it will be there forever on reviews, won't it? That's the
Yeah,
last thing you want.
yeah. Not that you've ever made a mistake, right?
Yeah, no, that's never happens. Yeah, honestly, I've got them very, very good like editors, and there was one thing, for example, I wrote about a sun setting I think it was in Key West, Florida, at
Hmm.
like I think it was about the month of June, and the sun was setting at about 9:15 p.m. And I got readers complaining, no, it wouldn't go at that time; it would be at least like 10 o'clock, blah blah blah. So it's very, very easy to find. Very easy to make it even the slightest assumption.
Absolutely. I shudder at some of my errors.
Uh-huh. But again, to the reader, to our viewers here, if you want to ask any questions, please just type a message in there, and I will do my best to ask Daniel the question. Can you tell us a bit about yourself? What do you are you a full-time writer now, or is this a side hustle? Have you got something else?
I'm mostly full time. I before I was writing, I was a business owner actually, and so I've steadily kind of over time, peeled myself out of the business and more into the writing, where that's mostly what I do now. I live in Delray Beach, Florida. I got tired of the Minnesota winters, so I sold out completely and went to the warmth. Married, have a son who is turning 1 shortly.
Oh,
So that's obviously the joy of my life right now. Um,
amazing.
yeah. How many kids do you have?
One,
Okay.
just about
Okay.
to turn 6. So we've gone through the
Okay.
terrible twos, three nagers, blah blah blah. We've almost made it to 6.
Great. You can tell me all the things I have to look forward to and all the mistakes to
It's going to
avoid.
be fun. Vicky,
But no, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I almost kicked myself because I did not write until I was, I guess, about 40, and and then realized, oh, this is like the love of my life to do this. I wish I had realized it about 20 years ago.
42 for me. That's before I
Huh.
first wrote my first book, 42. Didn't even have any real desire to write a book. Loved reading, but didn't had no desire to write. Came up with an idea, and then I didn't expect it to be a career. I expected it to just be something that I would self-publish a couple of books, and that would be it.
Which one was your first?
It was a book called The Wrong Sons, and then it became When You Disappeared because it got picked up by, so I got
Okay.
rejected by about 80 different agents,
Okay.
publishers. So I self-published my first three, and in the same week, two separate publishers got in touch about two different books. And
How
that's when
funny.
my life went, whoa, completely different. It's funny how things work out, isn't it?
It is. And how have you found, because that was a mystery thriller, right?
Yeah.
And then did you have trouble jumping to speculative fiction? I mean, I
No.
picture readers kind of saying, oh, wait, what is this? This is so different
Yeah.
from what
I think
this.
because I was self-publishing and I was quite naive and thought, I'm going to write whatever I want to write. And so I self-published two books. And then the third book was speculative fiction, was the one we called the
Mhm.
one.
I've read that one.
And then
Loved it.
people just stuck with me with it. They just stuck with me, and I didn't have to change my name for anything. Like
Mhm.
yourself, we can get away with calling ourselves the same name.
Yeah.
Readers seem to quite enjoy that I switch from one to the other. I think you'll probably find as well, if you haven't already, that people who have read your thrillers are going to read your other books, and maybe who haven't explored your other genre before, and it kind of opens up a different world to them.
Yeah. I mean, that's it's exciting. There's so many great genres to explore. It seems wrong not to do it if you can, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And who would have thought that in our 40s we would have had complete career changes?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, we finally got it right. It only took us, several decades.
Yeah, exactly. Um, who's the first person who reads your books? So when you've written a manuscript that you're happy to show someone, who's the first person?
My wife, actually.
Okay.
And she's phenomenal because she has a real eye um, for pace and just sheer entertainment value, right? So you know how it is. Sometimes you'll get lost in a description or you'll
Yeah,
get
yeah,
dragged down in a conversation, and she will just jump on that right away, and you
yeah,
can you can almost feel it that oh, this has got to get fixed right away,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
and that's invaluable, right? Because by the time she's done with it, if I'll sort of make fixes in real time based on her feedback, and by the time she's done with it, I know okay, this book might not be perfect, but it's not going to be boring,
right.
and that's a huge hurdle to get over, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
then you're kind of taking it like, okay, I've got it to a 7. Now I got to try and get it to an 8 or a 9.
yeah. Do you feel like you have to have a thick skin to be an author these days?
Uh, yes, uh, but I also think part of having a thick skin is just coming at it from a different perspective and saying, this is the book I want to write, and I'm going to do the best I can writing it. And once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not so much a thick skin as saying the product is, the product is out there, right? The product of my imagination is out there. And now everything that's being told from me is just learning for the next one. And so I think if you do that, it's not so much having a thick skin as just changing your perspective and saying, these people are just giving me great tips for the next book.
Yeah. I think that one of the best bits of advice I was ever given was just basically what you said. Just go with write what you want to write because you are never going to please everybody. You know, you
Yeah,
can look at a review and there could be 10 people criticizing one thing and 10 people praising the exact same thing. So you're never going to win. And this was my next
exactly.
question I was going to ask you, but Caitlin Bunting has asked, how do you guys deal with negative reviews and comments? It must be quite disheartening after spending so long working on your books.
Yeah.
You do. Do you
So
read
I absolutely do read the reviews.
them?
And I mean, I'd be lying if I said it doesn't like hurt you a little bit. Obviously, you put a lot of work into it. It's not a great feeling when you hear somebody trash your book.
Yeah.
Um, but but what I'll say is, like I said, the ones I love, I actually really enjoy a negative review that is specific about what didn't work,
Right.
because then I can kind of take a step back and say, number one, do I agree with that? Number two, if I do, that's something to learn from and grow going forward. The ones I have a hard time with are when somebody just says like, this didn't work for me,
Yeah.
1 star. And you're like,
Yeah. How do I work with
that's
this?
not super helpful. So I guess that's one thing I'd say is, oh, go ahead. What?
And the ones I find the most frustrating is when you get a review and it's the most amazing review and they give you 1 star because they haven't worked out the star system. But I also have received reviews as well that were cut and
Yeah.
paste and it was to someone entirely different to an entirely
Yeah,
different
that is
book by
frustrating.
an entirely different book by somebody else that they've given 5 stars to me by mistake. So you got to take the rough with the smooth.
Have the goods and bad. I actually once saw a great review from a doctor where the doctor got a 4 star review, and the person said, "This doctor saved my life." And the doctor wrote back saying, "I don't know what I would have had to do to get 5 stars."
Yes, yes, I love that. Would you read a lot yourself? Do you get the time to? Do you get the inclination to read?
I love reading, and I read probably more now than ever, even with the writing, just
Okay.
because um, I really do believe in the adage that if you want to get better as a writer, read more.
Mhm. Are you a physical reader, physical books, ebooks, audiobooks? What do you prefer?
Yeah, I don't know if it's something in my old age, but I've shifted to physical books again. I
Right.
was an e-reader, and then I find that I retain information way better in physical books.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel if I don't have a Kindle, but if I'm reading on like an iPad, then I tend to scoot through it a lot quicker than I would if I actually got a physical paperback in my hand.
Yep. Do you highlight books? I actually
No.
highlight books. I'll read something somebody wrote. I'll be like, "Ooh, that's good. I need to kind of incorporate that style more."
No, that's basically the mind of a psychopath, Daniel. That and people who color coordinate their book spines, like you can see above.
Right.
It's the mind of a potential killer.
Right.
So what's the last book that you read? What book, if you could read it right for, if you could recommend, sorry, to anybody, what would it be aside from your own?
Yep. Um, so let's see here. So the book I'm reading right now is actually called Memory Man by David Baldacci. It's pretty old, and I'm reading it mainly because of another book I'm working on. But a couple, and I'm not far enough into it to say much about it, but a couple that really jumped out at me that I read recently, which aren't necessarily new books. Um, have you ever read The Push by Ashley Audrain?
Yes, that's up on my shelf somewhere up there in the white section. The
Of course, of
psychopathic
course.
tendencies.
Uh, I thought that one really stuck with me and was very creative.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of a book that, for whatever reason, is sort of my North Star, Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn.
Yes.
I mean, she writes phrases to me where I'm just like, well, I'm never going to be that good a writer,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, I just think she really is a master of sort of using kind of offbeat phrasing to put you off beat, right? To get you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
How about
Have you
you? I'm curious your answer to that question.
I listen to and read so much different stuff. I mean, I have an audio book that I'm listening to, which is what I want to listen to. I have the advanced reader copies of stuff in physical versions that I read
Yep.
because, it's nice to do that. And then
Yep.
sometimes I'll have a book that I just want to physically pick up a book. So I'm on my desk here. So there's a British writer called John Niven who is very, very sarcastic, very, very funny writer. And then you kind of compare that to my palate cleanser, Taylor Jenkins Reid.
Yeah.
So you can't really
Yeah.
get too dissimilar from those books. So I like to read. Like you, I think you can't really do your job particularly brilliantly if you're not reading other people's books and seeing what they're doing.
Absolutely.
That's
And also I think to aspiring authors, I think other genres are great just to
Mm,
sort of get your
yeah.
brain more flexible, right? So you don't
Yeah.
just get in a routine.
Vicky asks, who is your favorite author? Do you have a go-to who doesn't matter what they write, you will read it?
Um, I mean, I have a few, honestly. Do you know who one of my favorite writers is, who has nothing to do with mystery thrillers? I love Philip K. Dick
I'm not, you know what?
writing.
To my shame, I've not read anything by him. I've seen so many of his adaptations on TV and the movies, but I've not actually read anything by him.
That's so funny because in a lot of ways, you're like the one is sort of in that
Yeah.
in like he could have written that
Uh-huh.
book. So
He'd have
you,
done a better job, but yes.
yeah, no, I don't know about that, but yeah, I think you would enjoy his writing for sure. Gillian Flynn would be another. But she hasn't produced anything recently. I think she's
No.
working on something. Um, yeah, I actually not just because you're here. I've read a number of your books.
No.
Um, so yeah,
You're too kind.
just trying to make you blush. But I'm trying to think of other
I'm
authors
too
that
dead I'm too dead inside to blush now.
I.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Peter Swanson in our genre. I don't know whether you read anything by Peter Swanson before.
Yep. Yep.
I think he's
Absolutely.
brilliant. I'll read anything
Yes.
by him.
Do you know who I think does a heck of a twist? Like if you're just into twisty, I think Riley Sager does a nice
Oh
job
yeah. Yeah,
with just the twists.
absolutely. Yeah. I've read, I think, three of his now, and yeah, he's a good old twister. And just going to a few reader questions. Cindy Woods asks, could you tell us about your writing process? Do you have
Yep.
a set time, a set word count, set location?
Yeah, so I'm pretty regimented actually. So I write basically my process is like I said, I start with the characters. I write the characters even before I write the plot because I feel like if you just know them intimately, then everything they do folds out of that and it reads real.
Yeah.
Then I do a detailed outline. I'm not a pantser. I do it chapter by chapter, um, organized just like your shelves. And and then once I have that done, I write a chapter a day,
Okay.
and I write every morning. So I just get up in the morning, I go right to my desk, boom, and I
Yeah.
don't stop until I've got a chapter done. And it doesn't have to be brilliant; it just has to be
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah. It just has
Um,
to be out of your head and on that page.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was the best piece of advice I got, and I unfortunately I don't remember what writer told me, but they said just get the content on the page
Yeah.
because they said it's going to seem to you like it's crap when you write it,
Yeah.
but you'll be surprised. Half of the time you're going to come back and you'll actually think, oh, this wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes it will be crap, but at least you've got crap that you can edit versus
Yes.
an empty
Exactly.
page, which is hard to edit an empty page.
I try and do about 2,000 words a day. That's my minimum.
Okay.
And like you, I'm pretty regimented. I'll start like about half eight, 9 o'clock in the morning. But my best writing time each day is between 3 and 5 o'clock. That's when my brain is on fire.
Really
That's also the time when I have to pick up our son from school on the school run, which is so frustrating that my head doesn't work in a better way than that.
brilliant ideas are flashing while you're driving.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Michael Chan asks, how time consuming is completing research for a novel and then fact checking what you found? So we touched upon that you're doing that at the moment.
Yeah. I usually spend probably a couple weeks at the start of a novel if there is research required, which there almost always is. And I just get sort of like the 80% of the way there, enough that I'm vaguely in the ballpark of being accurate.
Yeah.
Um, because that allows me to then just move into the novel. And then on the back end of the novel, that's really when I do the deep dive, and then I'll run by. For example, I have some good friends who are private investigators and police officers, and then I'll send a copy to them, and they'll of course tell me all the things I screwed up on, and then
Yeah.
go back and fix it. Um, but to be honest, I mean, I don't know if you agree with this. I don't find the research piece as being particularly onerous. In a lot of ways, I think it actually makes your novel better. It gives you ideas. You'll hear stories that you'd never hear if you weren't doing the research,
Yeah.
and then you're kind of getting that raw material that you can then throw in the pie.
Yeah. John, either Doherty or Doherty asks, what does your outline contain? What are its elements and organization? I think
Yeah,
John's after your ideas. He's trying to get into your head.
right, right.
Never trusted
Crafty,
John.
so crafty. So essentially it contains sort of what I referenced before, which is it's a full character list with I'm not joking. I literally take screenshots of people that look like my characters.
Yes.
Do you do that?
Yes. Exactly the same.
Because then
Yeah.
you can picture it forever, right? It's
Yeah.
like that's what this person is.
Yeah.
And then I write three things about the characters. I write their backstory, like where they're from, where they're from,
Yeah.
what their physical presence is, and then what drives them. So I list all that down, every character with the pictures, and then I do the chapter by chapter. And the chapter is really just the core conflict that's happening in the chapter, and then usually I'll put the hook, right?
Mhm.
That sort of end line of the chapter, whatever's going to keep the reader reading. Why do I care?
Are you so organized because you used to have your own business?
I think so. Yes. I think I think this is, when I was running my business, I had to break everything down into
Mm.
sections and tasks and all of that. And so it was sort of a natural thing to me as a writer, like, okay, I want to accomplish this. How do I do it? I break it into pieces.
Yeah.
Um, and that makes it so much less intimidating. I mean, I think writing a book is intimidating unless you break it up into pieces.
You see, that's why I never write chapter one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, etc. I'll do a chapter here, a chapter there, anywhere where I want to, and then piece it all together. I'll have like a rough idea of where the story's going, so I'll plot it, but probably not to your detail. And I'll just
Okay.
go for it and see what happens, then piece it all together. And for one, so most of my books are about 90 to 100,000 words. And
Okay.
then one I have coming out in a couple of years' time, well, not next year, after, I added everything together, all the separate Word documents, expecting it to be like about 90 to 90 odd, 57,000. I'm like, sweet Jesus.
Sort of a novella.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
So if anyone reads it and there's long descriptions about sunsets and beaches and cornfields, you'll know where I've had to pad this
Yeah.
out. It's quite heartbreaking. Megan Ratcliffe asks, do you plan on adapting any of your books to movies? Would that be something that you would be interested in?
I would love that, or I mean, I think for particularly for the Hazel Cho series, I think TV would be phenomenal.
It was so visual when I read that. I can picture her, I can picture where she's going, I can picture the steps up to cathedrals. Yeah,
It feels like that would be a great, and it would be a fun series, right? Because you'd have this
yeah,
private detective they're going through. So yeah, that
yeah.
that would be my ideal, but it's as I'm sure you know, it's a fickle business.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think 95% of books that are optioned never amount to anything in the world of TV or film. So
Yeah, it's
it is
crazy.
a miracle. Erin asks, how long did it take to finish the red letter?
I want to say 6 months.
Mm. Is
I
that from
think
start to finish?
I think so. Yeah. In general, it takes me 6 months to do a book, so don't quote me on that, but I think between 6 to 9 months.
Okay, yeah, it's about
Yep.
9 months for me these days.
Yeah, I can do two a year, I think. So
Yeah, I used to do about one every 9 months, and then it just
okay.
got to a bit too much. So, and I wanted a
Yeah.
bit of life back, so I've gone down to about one a year.
Yeah.
Alison Franklin asked, did the red letter change from the original idea to the finished product? Much.
Uh, that's a great question. There was one big change that I made, which it was funny. I literally had an aha moment while I was writing. I don't want to give it away, but what I'll say is um, I originally this is what I'll say. Obviously, at some point the killer is revealed, right? I don't
Uh,
think I'm giving away too much with that. But I originally had the killer being revealed in a relatively, a straightforward fashion, like you would
yeah.
normally in a mystery, right? Um, and I stumbled on a piece of misdirection
Okay.
where you think the killer is being revealed, but they're not.
Yes.
You know what I'm
I,
talking about?
I think I know what you mean. And that was a bit of a, oh, and then it was, oh,
Exactly. And
yeah.
that was total almost luck, right?
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
to the scene and I was like, wait a minute, I can switch this here.
Uh-huh.
And that was an awesome moment because it was just I think as a writer when you can have a reader have sort of a double surprise, I think that's a great moment.
It's also quite impressive that, so I read a lot of books. A lot of the people here, obviously love books and read books and like the psychological thriller or and cop drama, etc., and the genre. I did not guess who done it. And I was kind of a little bit peed off with you for because I couldn't guess, but then I would have been peed off had I guessed.
Right, right.
So you
There's
can't
no, you
win.
can't win. You can't
You
win.
can't win with me. No, I genuinely was surprised, but I don't
Well,
want to say more than that.
that's good because you know the game for sure.
Yeah. Lynette Wilson asks, what is the hardest scene you've had to write and how did you work through it?
The hardest scene or hardest thing?
Hardest, I think she says hardest
Okay.
scene you've had to write.
Okay.
Or
Um,
thing, whatever you want.
yeah, I guess so. I'll tell you, I'm struggling, candidly struggling with the book I'm writing now, in the
Mhm.
sense that um, because it's a psychological thriller, so much of the tension, pace, uh, drama stems from perception,
Mhm.
right? It's not, when you've got a book like The Red Letter or The Orphanage by the Lake, there's a procedure, right? There's something that's happened.
Yeah.
Hazel is taking action. Boom, 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 boom. There's action happening, and there are kind of logical consequences to that action. Whereas with psychological thriller, what makes a great psychological thriller is this person is being faced with things that are ambiguous, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to sort through like what does this mean? What is this? And to me, that's just been very difficult because it's not naturally how I think.
Right.
And so I've had to sort of really get outside myself and say, like, okay, if you perceive the world in a different way where you're not sure of everything around you, how do you behave? Right.
Yeah.
And that's just hard for
Leanna Withers asks, what is your interesting writing quirk? Do
me.
you have one?
Um,
Mine,
besides my
mine,
screenshots, yeah,
mine
what are
is
yours?
chewing toothpicks. I
Chewing
gave up
toothpicks.
smoking about 12 years ago, and now I just sit here chewing toothpicks while I'm writing, twiddling them around in my fingers, then picking out little wooden splinters from my gums. It is disgusting. I'll get sick to death of just finding these wooden toothpicks around the house, on the floor, in the car, everywhere.
That's a good one. You should have a character in one of your novels chewing toothpicks.
Yeah. Yeah, I've not actually used that yet. Yeah.
Um, I would say, oh, I got one. So my quirk is I often listen to house music, like electronic dance music while
Right.
writing, which is like the opposite of picturing like a light piano in the background or
Uh-huh.
maybe nothing at all, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I actually do listen to that sometimes and it actually happens to be something that Hazel Cho listens to as well. Um,
Uh,
just because it sort of um, takes me outside of the day to day.
that's really interesting. I kind of go for if it depends on what mood I'm in that day, I'll go for something either quite ambient or
Mhm.
I'll go for like 90s, early 2000s trance music, kind of pumped up
Okay.
quite loudly, or something just really ultra depressing, your Radioheads, your cigarettes after sex, just like kind of oh God, mournsome bands.
Right,
Yeah,
right. You're
I've not tried House.
you're listening to High and Dry while trying to write a
A love scene.
exactly, exactly.
Marcia Bullock asks, "What do you do if you have writer's block? Have you ever had it?"
Um, so no, I don't have writer's block, I think in the traditional way of like the blank page staring at me.
Yeah,
Um, but mainly because I think of the detailed outlining and whatnot.
yeah,
The biggest thing I have that's similar to writer's block is when I can't pull plot pieces together.
hmm
So I think one of the things that makes a great novel of any sort is you have to care about the characters, right?
yeah,
And I I don't know if you agree with this, but I think it is a real, particularly when you're in the thriller genre, there is a real balancing act between pace and character development.
hmm
You can't, you need the person, you want the people to care about your characters enough that they actually care what happens in this thrill ride.
yeah,
But you can't slow down the thrill ride so much that they say, is anything ever going to happen?
yeah,
And so, but in order to do that, you might have multiple characters, and so you're trying to pull these pieces together all while pushing the plot forward. And I think sometimes I'll get stuck where it's like, okay, I need you to care about this happening, but I also need to push this forward. How do I do both at the same time?
yeah. I also quite like writing characters that you might not like, but that you are interested, you are invested in, even if you absolutely hate them. I find that quite fun. But what I was going to say, that what I liked about the Red Letter was your pacing, because there's often like a bit of in a lot of books, a little bit of a sag somewhere. There was none of that. It was dum 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 dum, just on it, absolutely on it the whole time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's what's hard about psychological thrillers
Yeah.
is keeping that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the last couple of questions
Yeah.
on here. Yeah, we've had what are you currently reading? Um, okay, yeah, which authors have influenced you? So you've spoken about the authors that you like reading and over the years and what you're reading at the moment. Is there any that have inspired you over time?
A ton is the answer. I think from the detective fiction, as cliche as it is, I've just always been a great Agatha Christie fan, just because of that's what got me into mysteries in the first place. Um, I'm actually a big science fiction fan. So I don't know if you ever read Ender's Game, for example, by
Yes.
Orson Scott Card when I was
Yeah.
young. And like I said, Philip K. Dick and George Orwell. Um,
Yeah.
and then more recently, I think some of the uh, sort of darker psychological thriller writers have interested me. Whether it's actually I should well like Flynn and others like that. But I was actually going to go back and say, do you know who's also influenced me a ton is some of the Gothic writers.
Okay.
And you might even sense a little of that in the Red Letter, and certainly you'd sense it in the Orphanage by the Lake. But Bram Stoker, um, Dracula, like if you haven't for a while, go back and read Dracula. Like it's just
Yeah.
it sticks with you. Daphne du Maurier, Rebecca, that's another one. Jane Eyre, those that um, that writing for me really really hits because to me the combination of setting and character is so well boiled together that it sticks with you like a fog afterwards,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you read Dracula, and even though it's sunny outside and like your kids playing basketball, you're still in your like gut is still a little. uneasy. And I think that's a really cool thing about Gothic writing. So
This is what we need in your standalone, vampires. More
that
vampires. No one will see that coming.
that no, yeah, that would certainly be a
Vampires.
surprise.
Yeah, maybe you could go like the romantasy or something. We could have dragons in there as well. Just these are just suggestions. Just go for it. Just
Hazel
throw
Cho against the dragon. Hazel Cho battles
it.
vampires. Yeah.
No one will be expecting this. Okay. And that's basically it, I think. That's for it for our questions. So I
Yeah.
just it leaves me to say, so to thank our viewers for tuning in today, and to remind them that if you bought a ticket that included a signed copy of the red letter, then the book will be delivered to you in 8 to 10 business days. Just lift it up a bit more. There we go.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
Like blurred out.
Extra copies of the red letter are available 24/7 on barnesandnoble.com and at your local Barnes and Noble stores. Thank you so much for joining me, Daniel. I've really enjoyed
Yeah,
this.
this was a blast.
I very much look forward to book 3 in the Hazel Cho series and your
Yes.
standalone.
What's your next book?
Oh, mine's called Dead in the Water. So another happy title. So that's out in January. That book, I should have done what you did, and I should have thought more about the characters in advance. But I was so keen to write the story that I ended up 12 drafts of it before it actually went to my editor. Never written
Well
that
done. Well
before.
done.
Yeah. So when it
Dead
comes
in the
to it,
water. I'll
that book
look
is
for
dead
it.
to me. Yeah. Thank you.
Seriously, send me a copy. I'd love to read it. So,
That's very kind
yeah.
of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Lovely to meet you. Take care and
Lovely to
thank
meet
you
you.
so much.
All right. Take care.
Cheers. Bye bye.